Okay, so today what I want to talk to you about is the new religion, which I would call statism. So over the last 56 years, what I've noticed is that there's been a spiritual revolution taking place. Judeo-Christian values have been supplanted by this kind of new ideology, this new religion called statism. So people no longer put their trust and faith in God or Jesus, and instead they prefer to put their trust in big government. Big government will provide, they'll look after you. Mummy government will provide you with welfare benefits, a pension in retirement. It will provide you with healthcare. It will provide your kids with education. So you don't even need to worry about looking after your own kids, even, or looking after your own health. Mummy government will do all of that for you. So it kind of encourages people to adopt a relationship almost like a child has with a parent. So you bend down, you take your knee to big government, and you do what you're told, and in return, big government will provide for you. So it's, yeah, as I say, I think it's created like a childlike dependency on the part of the people on the state, which I think is a massive mistake on both an economic and a spiritual level. So I think it's economically misguided because each of us are unique, the only example of us that will ever exist. So therefore we know our own tastes and preferences much better than a central planner will ever possibly be able to know them. So therefore it makes perfect sense for us to be allowed to spend the money that we've earned helping others ourselves, rather than delegating that task to a central planner. Like when I was teaching in this girls' school, I used to sort of say to the girls, like, how many of you would trust your dad to buy you your next party dress? And they would all just laugh, and rightly so. So I'd then say to them, why do you trust the government to spend your money better than you can yourself? It's completely illogical. And then the other thing as well to realise is, the reliance on the state. It leads to extortion. Transactions between individuals and the state aren't voluntary; they're based on coercion. So another example that I would use would be when I lived in Guildford, and my council tax bill was £2,000 a year, and I lived in a pretty small house. Whoops. Um, and the only thing that I could really see that I got in return for that was my bin got emptied every fortnight, and even then they didn't do a particularly good job. So from my perspective, my £2,000 was worth far more to me than the value of the services that I received from Guildford Council. So if that exchange was voluntary, I would have withdrawn from that exchange. I'd have kept my £2,000, and I'd have sorted out an alternative way of getting my bins emptied. I wasn't getting value for money in simple terms. So if I'd have tried, maybe I could have written a polite letter to Guildford Council and saying, well, look, I don't think I'm getting value for money here. Maybe we could renegotiate, and yeah, the most I'm prepared to pay you is £300 a year. If I'd have tried that, the big government model is going to lead to fines, then maybe a court summons, and if you keep on holding out, eventually it leads in violence. Somebody will turn up at your door with big sticks in black uniforms. They're called the police, and you'll be hauled off to prison for non-payment of a fine. So this kind of big government model, it's based on ultimately coercion and physical violence. Also, the other issue is, like, can we actually trust politicians to use our money in our best interest, or will they actually just pursue their own objectives? This is what's happening now. Boris Johnson, for one reason or another in Britain, is pursuing a green agenda. That certainly wasn't in the manifesto that people voted for. People don't want that. But the government, once it's in power, will just do whatever it wants to do. So I would say that the state isn't really trustworthy. It's not a god that you would if you were wise anyway, that you'd put your trust in, you know. It's an untrustworthy God, is the state. A new religious development that I suppose most of us have noticed is the political correct or woke phenomenon. Um, and again, it has the hallmarks of like a fake religion, a cult, in the sense that if you go against any of their narratives, you can't have a polite debate about it. You know, you're a blasphemer who's an evil person because you disagree with these PC. Like, you might say, well, actually, I only think that there's two genders, and that's enough to condemn you. I also oppose it because it encourages division and hatred within society, so people like me, a white man, and I'm not even sure whether I once did one of these DNA tests or whatever, and it came back like I'm 1% South Sea Polynesian Islander apparently. So am I an ethnic minority? All of this stuff is ridiculously stupid. No, I'm a human being. I'm a child of God. That's who I am. I'm an individual. I'm Nigel Watson. That's who I am. I don't belong to any of these dumb categories. And this is what I really objected to at school, in that you'll have teachers that just propagate hatred towards other people based on things that people can't control, like their gender or their skin colour. That people are being condemned, for being a white man, or it's just ridiculous. It's evil. It's nothing more than that. It's completely evil. And it also encourages a looting mentality too. So you have this sort of social justice idea that it's morally right for the government to treat people unequally in order to make them equal. It's just ridiculous. And again, it's immoral. Some people will always earn more money than others because they're smarter, they're harder working, maybe they're more honest, so they do better in the long run. And, so you'll always have differences by outcome. So it's completely wrong for a politician to come in and basically say, look, vote for me and I'll loot stuff, free stuff from other people on your behalf. And again, this is where even democracy can fall foul, because if you've got a majority at the ballot box of people who are kind of resentful and lazy because they've been taught that at school, they will then vote to loot a minority, maybe a 10%, who are hardworking, who are creating the wealth. And you just get a society that implodes because you just end up with zero incentives. Again, this was in the news yesterday, I think. Boris Johnson has said, there's too many old people in Britain living in houses that are too big for them. So what we're going to do is create incentives for them to move out so families with more kids can move in. This is people's private property that we're talking about. And Boris Johnson is just going to loot it. He's going to, take property away from elderly people and give it to younger people. Yeah, again, this is awful. It's the road to serfdom. So what I would say really is that what's the solution really is to go back towards Christianity. Christianity is based on free will. Jesus, he didn't come down to earth to advocate that we should set up a massive non-contributory welfare state and that we should have progressive taxation. No, he didn't do any of that. Jesus stressed charity, that's true, but it was based on voluntary actions. Yeah, he also encouraged each of us to serve one another. Jesus Christ was the servant king, and that's what he expects each of us to do, is to serve one another. And we do that best in a free market economy where we specialize at what we're good at, and then we trade with each other. Now, this trade is not like transactions that occur between me and the state. These are transactions between free individuals. So these transactions are all voluntary. So as I said to you before, if I tried to withdraw from my transactions with Guildford Council, I would have been beaten up and thrown in jail, because that's what the state does to people that disagree with it. In a free market society, exchange must be mutually beneficial in order for it to take place. So, for example, if I want to spend some money on a beer in a pub, €5 at my local, that's my free choice. And if I choose to do that, what that indicates is that I'm valuing the beer more highly than the €5 that I gave up to buy it. And similarly, no one forces the publican to sell me the beer. It's a free choice. It's their free choice. They do so presumably because my €5 to them is worth more than the beer that they gave up to give to me. So it's all based on free will. So those transactions that are voluntary, by definition, they're mutually beneficial. Both the buyer and the seller both benefit. And if the transaction stops being mutually beneficial, either the buyer or the seller will withdraw. So, again, there can be no exploitation in a society that's based on free markets and free will, which is basically what Jesus was all about, and Christianity was all about. It was about free will. You've got a choice, and what Jesus wants you to do is to work hard in the service of others. And if you work hard and you serve others effectively, you'll be rewarded for it. That's that kind of Matthew principle, isn't it? For those that have give most, they'll be given more. So I think that's more or less all I wanted to say. Really is there's another. As you know, I live in Finland, so Finns have got all sorts of interesting proverbs and sayings and stuff. And I remember once my wife sort of saying, her granddad always used to talk about, you got to get out of bed early because God won't feed the lazy ones. And you can find that in 2 Thessalonians. I was reading the Bible the other day, 2 Thessalonians, and I came across that, So that's it. So in conclusion, what I would say is stop looking at the state to solve all your problems for you. Stop treating the government as a false god, because it's morally wrong. And especially when the government starts promising your other people's stuff to you, that's exactly what Hitler did. It's like, vote for me and I'll loot the Jews' stuff and give it to you, and people voted for that. And then the other thing as well about it is just you're going down the wrong path if you start treating the government as God, because it's not God and it will let you down. These politicians, they don't care about you. So that's all I need to say today. So what else I can show you? I've got my t-shirt with a sheep and a mask on. I hope you like that. And that's it. God bless you all.